All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the F and Growth Podcast, episode number 8. Today, we're talking all about how to build a world-class Webflow agency. So, what does that mean? We're going to connect some of the dots. In previous episodes, we've talked about how to hire and plan for growth, how to sell yourself, how to increase the value of sales with technical knowledge, and been all over the board about what you can do individually. Now it's going to be about building an agency. So, episode 8 is all about taking that all together and taking that next step. But once again, before we get too far into this thing, let's up and grow. Oh no. Oh. It's almost perfect. Oh man, I thought I tied everything together. I'm telling you, I'm gonna get that opening perfect one of these days. I realized last week that I said let's before we get too started or something, and there's always like a million things running through my mind, and I'm trying to do this live opening, whatever. I don't know. What's up, Pierre? Hi, Kyle. Magdalena's with us. Jack, Kyle World. Let's see. Maggie's with us. We got a bunch of people in the audience with us today. I'm Rymar Torado once again. This is Joe Krug. What's up, Joe?
Hello, hello. How you doing?
Yeah, it's time to get busy. Um, let's see. I'm liking this audience voting thing, by the way. So if you voted, we appreciate you. We appreciate you participating in that. There was like 75, I think, votes, or I'm not sure how many we ended with, 78 for this episode. It was competing tightly with design. And so I think maybe next week we'll stick with design unless y'all vote for something else. And so we'll do that. Do we got a couple housekeeping things today, Joe? Did we want to talk a little bit about, let's see.
Yeah, we want to go over our new Cal invite for Webflow. This is a JavaScript library that's going to allow you to add calendar invites to your Webflow site. And we are going to screen share that for you. We're going to give you a quick preview of what that looks like. And this is something that we are using already. We have people in the community using this. You're able to create an invite from Google Calendar, Apple Calendar, or Outlook. It's as simple as copy and pasting this and changing your classes to match the calendar content. So if we go on Automate All the Things, we have this live on Aaron's site, and you can see that when you go over each event, you can choose to add it as a Google invite, Outlook, or Apple. This is really nice for your users that are specific to one calendar platform. They see their calendar and they say, great, let me go add this. So you click, you allow that user to add it, and now they can go to your live event or your sale or your webinar, whatever you have. This works with Webflow CMS lists, it works with Webflow CMS template pages, and it works static. So we have just launched this. It's out in the wild. We're excited. Please check it out. Go and start doing some more content with this type of mentality.
Okay. All right. So yeah, a couple people had asked us about that. They'd asked us to show like what the use case would be, what you might use it for. And so hopefully that shows you a little bit about what you can do. People are saying my audio is low, so let me know. I think I've adjusted that a little bit, but I can push that up just a little bit more. So let me know if that works for y'all. The other thing we wanted to mention real quick before we got too deep into our stuff is a congratulations to MakerPad. MakerPad has been killing the content game. They're doing a lot in the no-code space. They were just acquired by Zapier. And so congratulations to Ben Tossel and the whole team over there at MakerPad. They've been supporters of events of ours in the past, Clone Comp and different things. And so congrats. This goes to show that no code is really popping off the handle right now. There's a lot of momentum in the space. And so, yeah, I think that's all we're going to say about that. Joe, any other thoughts there before we move on?
Yeah, it's really great to see content being so valued, that no code's growing and this content is next level. So when we talk about some of these things in the show, we're going to touch on content, and you should understand that Zapier acquiring MakerPad is a sign that this content that all of us in the community are creating is really important. So yeah, great job there.
Great. Okay, so housekeeping is out of the way. We've got all that figured out. Let's jump into the show today. World-class Webflow agency. What does that even mean, right? What does it mean to be world-class? We were talking about this before the show, Joe. How would you define this? How would somebody know if they're even close to world class? What does that mean?
World class to me means that you are known internationally for a level of quality, for something special. And it's not just local, it's not your local market, it's not just national. You now have people around the world following you and around the world interested in you and wanting to do things with your agency, whether it's learning from your agency or to use your agency for services. One
Looks like Joe froze a little bit there. Not sure what's going on with that connection, but hey, one of the things we wanted to ask you all before Joe gets back, he'll pop in here in a second, but we want to know what y'all think. What do you think before we kind of give everything of what we think it means to be world class? We'd like to know what you guys think. So maybe in the comments, hi Grace, hi Greg, hi Penny, Caleb. Just let us know what you think it means to be a world class agency. So what Joe is saying is being recognized outside of your initial market, being recognized on a larger scale, maybe having other people recognize your work, and just kind of having, that extra benchmark, right? Having that extra little something that when you know and you see it, you're like, oh, this is that next level thing right here. So Joe's back.
I'm back.
Joe,
I don't know
yeah,
what happened.
sorry about that. Yeah, sometimes the internet be like that. So excuse a little technical hiccup there. But I've asked the audience to tell us like what do they think it also means. But if you want to finish your definition there while they come in, um, Jack's saying a good point here. Jack Haggerty, they work with top brands, right? So social proof and working with top brands, I think that's a big definer of world class, right? Do you have other clients that operate on a global scale? If all you're doing is websites for mom and pop shop or the little local plumber over here, whatever it is, that's not world class. If you're doing websites for brands that are recognized on a global scale, that might be world class. And so, yeah, that's a great point there, Jack. Um, Rohan is saying working with enterprise clients. Joe, did you want to maybe finish what you thought your definition was there?
Yeah, I don't know when I cut out, but what you just said is great. Recognizable on an international level, which I think is a big achievement. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's world class. And how do you get to world class? You have to start by setting ridiculous standards that you have to think big, even when you're small. You're a little tiny, just starting out. You don't know how you're going to get to world class, but you need to have that as part of your expectations, and you need to set goals and standards that reach that level. So that's how you have to get there, and you have to be confident about it. You have to really push yourself to go in that direction, even if it seems like an impossible journey when you first start.
Yeah. Um, uh, Faisal, I don't know how to say your last name, but doing impactful work, small or big. Um, kind of. I tend to agree, but I kind of want to like delineate that we're talking about world class here. So we're not really talking about small. You could have a small local impact and be working with a nonprofit and be making a big impact in your local community, but this does not necessarily make you world class, right? And so that doesn't mean that you're not excellent or that you don't do amazing work or that, you're not above average or that it's not excellent. Like this is not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is specifically having reach beyond that local market or beyond like, this smaller thing, right? And so this is what we're talking about today is big, right? We're thinking big. We're trying to like think obviously the scale of the globe here, right? Which is massive. And so the internet makes this possible for all of us to access these markets. And so we all have potential to build a world-class something, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be a Webflow agency. We all can do whatever it is on a global scale. The question is, how do you break that barrier from the small, regional, localized impact to something bigger or something that's got, a larger reach? And so that's kind of, I do want to make that distinction through this episode today. Um, and part of that is what Joe's talking about is setting those ridiculous standards, like just really setting yourself looking for perfection. Although you'll never reach it, you never get to what perfect is. Most of the world's best creators, that's how they separate themselves is in those millimeters of perfection, right? Getting that little bit closer to just doing something so amazing. And once you're at the high end of the tier there, those little percentages make such a big difference and they're so hard to get, right? They're so hard to kind of break through those barriers. So, Any thoughts on any of that, Joe?
Yeah, I would love to share a ridiculous standard that we had early in FinSuite. It
Yeah.
was service quality. And I see Kai Jolly talking about this excellent communication and client support. This is something that really made FinSuite go to the next level because we were getting these medium medium type projects and giving them enterprise level communication and enterprise level client support. And they felt that and they experienced it. And before every project, our goal, our standard was to make that client happier than they could ever imagine themselves being. So yes, those are you can set standards like that. It doesn't have to be 100 websites per month. We're not talking about that here. We're talking about setting standards that are way above what this client is expecting, what you're expecting, and what the project is all about.
Well, and the standards could be your personal, like, you just won't accept, right, like half-ass projects, right? You just, because a lot of people just mail it in, right? You can get to the point in a web career where it's easy to land a three, five, $10,000 project, $20,000 project, and you just kind of go on cruise control, right? And it gets real easy to just maybe use some components from over here, style a couple themes, make things. The client will never know. The client will never know. So you just go ahead doing your business, and the client may be happy, but you're never going to break that threshold, right? You don't have that benchmark where you're just like, we're going to blow these people away. That's one of the things that I really love about FinSuite is that, like, our goal is to always just knock people's socks off, right? And so you come in with certain expectation. X expectation sounds weird, but a certain expectation, and our goal is to blow that out of the water. And so that's kind of a standard that we operate at, is like, how can we wow our end user, the customer, whatever. And so I think that ridiculous standards can also come to like the fit and finish of the quality work. Think about like Amish crafts versus like mass manufactured tables, right? You can get a table at IKEA for 25, $50, $100, whatever it is. But if you buy some handcrafted piece of like wood that the person sat there and handed, and maybe there's no screws or anything, it just fits, right? Just perfect. It's like, you know? And you're like, oh, okay, this is perfect. There's standards there, right? And so the difference in process, the difference in end product is noticeable there. You should look at the same approach with your website. Um, Pierre nailed it. Bringing unmatched value
Nice.
and quality on of services on all the projects you take on, 100%. Jay Wolf, contributing to
We have
best
a great
practices in your
oh,
industry. Yeah. Go ahead, Joe.
we have a great question from Ansul, and I'm excited to answer it. Joe, what does it mean by enterprise level client support and communication? Imagine you get a $5,000 project, a $1,000 project, doesn't matter what the amount is. Imagine now that that project, you're being paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for that. It sounds crazy, but picture yourself being paid a crazy amount of money for this project. It's going to push you to get to that next level in service quality. I'll give you an example of how I worked with HelloSign. I was always encouraging them to share everything with me. If you have a marketing meeting and you have some ideas about what we can do with the website, tell me. Maybe I could do it for free. If you have an idea of doing this with the CMS, tell me, let's talk about it. And I was always talking with them like I was a full-time employee, or like I was on a 6-month enterprise type contract. So I was treating them like they were paying for my year's salary, when really it was just a small project in terms of budget and cost.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by the next level of the communication and support. What did that do for us? It brought us referrals, it brought us new business, and it made HelloSign an active client for many years. So
Yeah.
that is what I mean by that. Really thinking about it as an enterprise.
And this is something Joe's talked about a number of times, right? It's like over delivering. If you got a $10,000 website, delivering a $20,000 worth of value. If you got a $20,000 website, delivering whatever you can above. Maybe it's not always double the value, but doing something that's just kind of above that threshold, pushing yourself and trying to again wow that customer. That leads to repeat business. That leads to referrals. That you can never kind of go wrong. Making sure the customer is super happy there. So let's see, Vi. I think we'll talk about that towards the end about getting international clients. We'll take some of these questions at the end. Let's see. I'm trying to think if there's anything about that. before we jump into, well, and another thing about ridiculous standards is accountability. So before we jump to the next section, let's talk about a little bit of accountability, because it's easy to say you have X, Y, Z standards if you don't set anything to benchmark those or to check them or to kind of hold yourself accountable to that, which is kind of what some of this is about, right? This is us holding ourselves accountable to the audience. We say some stuff on the show, you guys got to hold us to account the next day or the next week or whatever it is. And finding like interesting ways to build accountability in your processes, with whether that's with a business partner, whether that's with somebody online that will help hold you to account on different things that you're doing. But finding an interesting way to hold yourself account to those standards on a regular basis is another step to just always taking that next level of growth. And with
And
that,
a really easy way to do that, a really easy way to set yourself accountable is to ask the client. Ask them, how am I doing? Is there anything I could be doing better? Is there anything that you're looking for in this project that is not happening? They will tell you. They'll say, hey, I really wish that we had a weekly call. Or, hey, I think we're spending a little too much time on this. I'd like to move forward. Ask them.
yeah.
And that is how you can they should be responding to that saying, everything is amazing. You're the best. I can't wait to refer you. I can't wait to work with you again. And if they're not saying that, you're probably doing something wrong.
Yeah. And that's very specific, or that's very good advice. What you just gave there is to ask for specific feedback, right? A lot of times you go to a restaurant and the manager comes over at the end of the meal. It's like, how was everything? And you're like, oh, it's great. Right. Versus what was one thing we might have been able to improve about your experience today or whatever it is. Right. And so like, there's a way
Yeah.
to get
Yep.
feedback that leads you to actually getting good feedback. So you can ask questions that are just like, okay, somebody's going to give you like a high five virtually because nobody's going to call out anything specific, or you can ask for that real core detail, like what's one thing or how could we improve this? And then people give you specific feedback. That's always valuable, more valuable than kind of the broad general
Right.
stuff. Okay, and Penny is saying ideally we should all be working on our highest levels on all sides of projects. If we do good work, we have more chance to move outside our local markets. Exactly, right? And so everyone's at a different
Yep.
level of what type of projects they're doing. So this is not to discourage anybody to say like, hey, you're not a world class level designer. I'm not either, right? Joe is not either, but we're still building a world class operation, because you don't necessarily have to do all the pieces that it takes to get to this stuff. What you do have to do is build momentum, right? That's what you have to build, is momentum, and you have to build compounding momentum. And so, like, yes, Penny, that's exactly it. You can start at a lower level and you start pushing the boundaries of what you can do. Next thing you know, those boundaries expand. You start doing more things, and that compounds. You build that momentum, and then you have an opportunity to step into that world class stage. And it's sometimes it happens all at once, right? Sometimes you have this crazy breakthrough project that puts you on the stage. You get an opportunity to work with a Hello Sign, or you get an opportunity to work with some big national brand or some big global brand, whatever. And that's how you break through. And sometimes it happens a little slower, right? Like just real solid work. And eventually you will get noticed. And that's going to come down to maybe another episode we'll do about promotion and distribution and marketing, et cetera, because you still have to, distribute the goods. Just doing the work is not good enough, right? People still have to see, and you still have to be discoverable. And so that is another thing that sets the world class players apart, is that they're good at getting in front of people. They're good at kind of hitting that viral wave, grabbing community, whatever it is that they use from a marketing standpoint. That's another thing that separates those players. So where to start, Joe? Where do we even start?
Where to
right?
start? Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so many places to start, and we'll try to generalize this for everybody. That some of you may be starting from step 0, some of you may be starting from step 5, from whatever. You could be working in this industry for however long, and you have the opportunity to become world class. That's a fact. So where do you start? The very first thing, check out the FinSuite strategy. Let's share this link inside the chat. This is a project that we created specifically talking about year 1, 2, and 3 of FinSuite. This was our start. This was the strategy to go from where we were, step 0, all the way to where we are now. So if you're really interested in this, please give a scroll through this. There's an audio. It's really valuable. Now, what's the first thing you can do? One of the really big things you can really start to work towards is getting part of the Webflow Partners Program. A lot of people, when they're talking about where to start, they're really saying, how do I get clients? How do I start working with these bigger clients? Being part of the Webflow Partners program is going to get you to the next level in terms of visibility. You're going to be in their directory. People will be able to find you easier. And that was something that really helped FinSuite throughout the process. You'll read that in the strategy, that being accepted to that partner program gave us a really good opportunity to start getting bigger projects. How do you get part of that program? They have a lot of information about that on the Webflow site, but really it comes down to being a really good developer, being a good designer, being able to make a beautiful website. You don't have to do all of that yourself. You can assemble a team to do that, but that's really where you have to start. I need to make a beautiful website. It needs to look good. It needs to work good, and there can't be any problems. That's a first step to getting to that partner program, to getting to the high quality work that you need to get to the next level every single time.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where it comes down to some of those standards, right? The standards in the work are the projects accessible? You know, are you doing some of the extra things around the edges that are kind of expected from a high level projects? Pablo Cortez is saying here that he thinks it comes down to your clients. Clients really determine if an agency is world class, like working with Nike, Adidas, Netflix, etc. I would say yes, if you're landing those kind of clients, that probably means you're playing on a world class stage. But a great way to make yourself world class is to break out with a new client, right? Is to find somebody before they're a Nike or an Adidas or somebody like that, and be the place they can come to get that work done, right? Because once you break through that threshold, now you're kind of in an upper level stratosphere. You're going to be demanding high dollar for your projects, but this is not where you like this is not where you break in to becoming world class, right? Like when you break into becoming world class is like, how do you find these people around the edges that are going to pay you this good money, and you're going to give them something that they can't get elsewhere, right? Like these indie little video games or these little indie studios, right? 3, 4, 5, 10 people, 20, 30 people, right? Like we're having here, are creating projects that are competing with agencies that have hundreds and hundreds of employees, right? So just because you're working with Nike or whatever, that kind of means you're in that stratosphere. But if you're trying to break into that, you may have better success, right? Finding those around the edges and breaking them into that stratosphere, which again, that's how you can make a real good name for yourself. So I agree, Pablo, but I also think like, finding those diamond in the rough clients, those opportunities to work on things that are kind of above your pay grade or above your skill set, and figuring out how to deliver on those still so you blow the customer's expectations. That's how you build a reputation for doing like really hard things well. And that's where I think you can, come into some of that world class um, standing, if you will. Any thoughts on what I just said there, Joe?
Yeah, that's all great points. That it's hard work. You have to really fight through that, and it doesn't come instantly. That working with companies of all size, you really have to be patient with this. So when you're starting, don't think that what we're talking about is going to happen in 4 months or 6 months or even a year. We didn't start seeing really good quality clients on a constant basis for four plus years into FinSuite. This is not an overnight thing. So patience, super, super important.
Yeah, I think that's something for people to take to heart for sure, because a lot of people expect this stuff to just pay off immediately. So,
yeah.
Let's see. Grace.
Okay. Oh, we have a great question from Grace. How difficult is the process to become a Webflow partner? It's one of my goals for this year. Okay, and Ali has the same. Okay, I don't know the process. We got into the program when it was 15 people or so total, and we got in there through the HelloSign project. HelloSign was one of their premier customers. We got the best review from HelloSign. So going back to this customer service, HelloSign raved and raved and raved about us. And experts basically just said, okay, come on, come in. You don't even have to do anything or apply or anything. That's how good HelloSign's word was for what we were doing for them. So that really, really good service brought us into this partner program. And now what I think the standard is like we were talking about, building really nice sites that work really well, that follow Webflow standards, that have all the boxes checked off, that don't have 50 issues on mobile. So there's a bunch of people you can reach out to about that. We don't run the partner program. I don't want to give too much information about that, but check it out. They have information on it. They're looking to add more people to the program. So yeah, everybody in here should be pushing for that.
Yeah, and Pablo Cortez was saying, how many projects do you even need to be considered? I don't think there's a set number, but Robert does apply back or reply back and say you do need to have 3 that you submit. I got to imagine to be considered a partner, you probably want to have a portfolio bigger than 3, right? So 3 is just what you
Yeah.
submit for their
Yeah.
official review. And then on that, they're looking for, things like structure, tagging, design, accessibility, all of that stuff. And so, Robert, thanks for the alley oop on that one. Ezekiel, we'll catch you next time. Thanks for hanging with us.
Nice.
Okay, so next to the next thing, finding your groove. Because like we talked about, growing and becoming this world-class agency is about building momentum. Joe mentioned that it took 4 years to really start, getting that kind of lead structure. And so where you're getting consistent, high quality leads on a regular basis. And so finding that groove, right? Joe, we got to like figure out, do we niche down? Do we specialize? Like are how are we starting to build that momentum, right? Let's go back 4 or 5 years and let's start thinking about what are the behaviors we're going through? Like what are we doing right? What's going through your head as you're starting to like grow and maintain a little bit of consistency before you broke into that like, you know, real strong lead over lead is really good. Like let's go right back before that moment.
I'll start from day one. I have a funny laugh moment here. First call, first project. It was a wedding planner. And I thought that FinSuite was going to make wedding planning websites. I'm a wedding, I want to have a website. FinSuite is for you. Looking back on it, that's just absolutely ridiculous. But I thought that I wanted to niche down that far. Like I'm so focused. I don't really recommend this. Even if you're working with people that can pay, doctors and dentists and lawyers, still not. Have you ever heard of a world-class agency building lawyer websites? No. Have you heard of a world-class agency building local websites? No. So it's a little too focused. Once we started to reach out to other projects, it was very clear, okay, we need to do everything. We need to just, any project that comes our way, we need to start taking it in. And throughout the process of FinSuite, we were thinking, well, maybe it's crazy design. Maybe we're the team that just does the most ridiculous design. And then it was, well, maybe we're the team that does the ridiculous design and animates it, right? We've had a lot of animation projects and a lot of crazy movement. And that's what I thought FinSuite was going to really grow into. Nope, didn't like it. And now we have recently found our real niche, and this one feels good. It's the move to development. So you can see niches as all these different types of things, a focus on a specific industry, a focus on a specific service. And now I think FinSuite position as a development company has a chance to be true world-class. If we were a design company, I don't know if it would be world-class. Maybe. I can imagine FinSuite being world-class in design, but I see the clear path of FinSuite being world-class in development. So that's why we chose that route, that no one else is doing it. We're very good at it, and we have the team to take it to the next level. So all of this, what does this mean? You have to figure out what you're good at. You have to figure out what services you can really go to the next level in. Is it design? Is it development? Is it service quality? You can actually be world-class in service quality. There's all these different things to really consider, and there's no right answer. It all comes down to you, and you really need to understand yourself, your agency, and what your goals are to decide what your groove is and how
Yeah.
you get to that world-class level.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's so many places to do that, like like you were saying, starting out in wedding planning, I can't even imagine Joe doing wedding planning sites. That's kind of funny. I didn't know that. That's funny for me to know. Um,
Yep.
but and it may not be a bad idea for you to start in a niche like that, right? Maybe you only want to do architect sites or doctors or whatever. Lots of times you have to go through these processes, discovering like a path in order to find the right path, right? And so it's not necessarily about picking the right path at the beginning. As Joe said, there's going to be pivots along the way. You're going to find opportunities, you're going to find things that work, you're going to find things that don't work. And the idea is to do more of the things that do work and less of the things that don't. And as you bounce through that path, you'll kind of find the real niche, right? And so for us, now it's dev only, Webflow based, right? Webflow specific. So Webflow itself is a niche, but now dev only inside of Webflow is an even tighter niche, right? But there's a huge potential inside of that niche. And so niching down doesn't necessarily mean limiting your small, swath of potential clients, right? Niching down can be in totally different ways. But what you do, again, have to go back to those activities that you can do as an individual or as a group of individuals, team, whatever, small team, that compounds activity, right? That compounds the growth, right? And so you always need to be, again, finding that groove around what it is that makes you different so that you can amplify those efforts in order to move into that next tier. And that goes into things like finding talent, which we've done an episode on. Episode 1 was all about how to find the right talent, where to find this talent, and prepare for growth inside of Webflow. Obviously, we talked about the Webflow Partner Program. We've talked about building up a portfolio. And I think maybe we need to do, Joe, we need to do a full session on portfolio, on like prep,
Yeah,
on
we do.
presentation, about like, and even just raw sales. And so let's see, Pierre saying huge loss for the wedding industry. Couples missed out, man. You're right. You're right. The wedding industry is a lot more just basic because of the fact that FinSuite dropped out of that race. Effing sweet weddings. That's
And
right, Rohan.
you know, adding to this portfolio and to growing your team, one of the reasons I thought wedding industry is because I'm not a true designer, that my design quality only goes to a certain level. And I knew of all the wedding websites that I see, I can do better than most of these, which is why at the time it felt like, okay, that's great. I could do this. It wasn't until I started working with other people that are better designers did I realize that, okay, these are now we should be focusing on something else. Started working with some animators that are really good. Okay, now we should be focusing on this animation stuff. Started working with developers that are really good. Now this truly makes sense. And going all the way back, I am a Webflow developer. If you had to take one of my Webflow skills between animation, Webflow development, design, Webflow developer is it. I'm really good at a clean site. I've built very big sites. I've built very small sites. And this is something that I feel really comfortable with. And I think that that trickles down to the team, that the rest of the team feels that, they understand it. And I think I'm naturally bringing in people that are also really good at that, at the development side. So this has been a long journey, 5+ years of finding this. So again, back to what we were saying before, don't feel rushed with this. You have to be patient. You're going to go through cycles with this.
Yeah, and I think that goes to a couple points that are made here. Uh, Heatherwick is saying something like first time to hear of a focused jack of all trades. Bravo, which is kind of true, right? Lots of people at FinSuite and lots of people in the no code space in general are very broad skilled, broad ranging skill set people, right? A lot of times they have experience in design, in marketing, in entrepreneurial endeavors, whatever it is, maybe even a little bit of technical skills. And they're kind of looking at no code as an opportunity to connect all these dots around these skill sets that they have. And so I think this is a very dynamic marketplace of talent because of that, right? Because people are finally coming into this space and being able to build out on these ideas, these abstracted concepts that they might have had in their head for a long time, but have been limited by code. And so this is one of those things where, yeah, again, like you're going to see lots of jacks of all trades in this business, but those jacks of all trades are going to start specializing and focusing down. I read this real interesting article recently, and maybe I'll share it in the post here about Excel and how it's kind of Microsoft just launched recently. They're building Excel into an actual programming language, right? And so like Think about just
Mm.
and the growth of Excel as an industry. I really I'm gonna Joe, I'm gonna share this article with you, and I'll share it in the comments here through the Q&A
Yeah.
section because it was really interesting to me to talk about the evolution of this software and how so many software solutions right now are either mimicking Excel or they're kind of deconstructing Excel. And deconstructing Excel means they're taking pieces of what Excel used to do and kind of building out on that. So like Salesforce started by figuring out like sales momentum inside of Excel spreadsheets, and obviously that scaled over the course of the years into this, and now you're also seeing things like Glide, Airtable, etc., which are mimicking Excel. And either way, it's really about abstracting lower level concepts and allowing people to make calculations and build software without code, which is really all we're talking about here. Webflow is a very specific way to do that, but this all falls inside of this no code industry. And so it's like there's so much opportunity here for you to find the thing that you do well, or to find somebody else that does the things that you don't do well and work together to do things bigger than you could individually. That this is where you get to the place where you can start building beautiful things. David's saying here, what was the FinSuite's reasoning to grow the team as much as it has, as opposed to keeping it small, boutique, and high end? It's because of the scope and size of projects, right? Like it's hard to build. You can build a world class boutique agency with just a few people, but you're always going to be limited in the scope of the amount of work you can do. And so once you get to the point where you're bringing in and attracting these type of clients, you kind of want to figure out how to scale that. First of all, so that you can get people who are experts at those individual tasks doing the work, right? So you can get more specific on the types of things you do, but also to then break out more of those groups to be able to take on some of these projects and do different things inside of that skill set. And so I'll let Joe speak to any other reason he has for growing the team as much as he had, as opposed to staying as a boutique shop. But that's kind of how I see, this whole growth of no code and the opportunity inside of it to take the next step.
Yeah, it's a great question, David. That the real answer for me is it comes down to you. What do you want to do? Me, I would never be fully satisfied with work if FinSuite was a 5-person team. Even if we were working with the best of the best companies, if we were 5 people, long term, I could not be happy with myself doing that. I have always had bigger visions of business, of FinSuite, of what I can do with a company. Is it a lot more work than when it was 5 people? Absolutely. When it was 5 people, I used to be able to work all day long without talking to a single person. I could just turn on some music, start building a website, work for however many hours, and then be done. Now is constant communication, constant decisions. I'm online every day now, talking to people. It is a lot more work. There is a little bit more stress that's involved with it, but that's exactly what I want. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for this, and I'm looking for FinSuite to grow 5 times this or more.
Yeah.
So it comes down to you, David. Do you want this? Do you want the little bit more of stress for the bigger company, or do you want to keep it small, simple, and lower risk? That's up to you.
Yeah, and WKD dos Argente. I'm sorry if I don't pronounce that properly, but I'm in freelance. But should I introduce myself as an agency on my website? I plan to become one at some point. So this goes to that same point, Joe, and some of what
Yeah.
we talked about before. It's like
Yeah.
it's all about how you want to present yourself, right? This is your picture to paint, and it's an infinite canvas, right? If you look on my Twitter profile or on my Instagram, the world is my canvas is something I use a lot, right, as a phrase, because we're painting on a canvas that's infinitely malleable with a color canvas that literally is just becoming more and more vibrant and diverse every day, right? All of these tools are new paintbrushes for us. All of these data sets, all of these creative tools are just like me as an artist, I see this infinite potential. And this is kind of the fun of this is figuring out like how do I present my story? What story do I want to tell? How do I tell this? And sometimes you can get overwhelmed with that, which is I think what we're trying to hone you in with some of these podcasts is figuring out how do you like focus that attention. But part of this is, the exciting part of solving it. Jay is talking about start where you have a personal interest. So Jay Wolf, that's in exactly like right. The best place to start is where you're interested in doing something because then you can become obsessed with it, right? If you're just punching the clock and you're just doing the work here and there and at the end of the day you're just over with it, you're never going to get to that next step. It's when you obsess over something. There's a quote that says, "A smart man learns to control his brain. A genius is controlled by it." And a lot of times, it's that genius potential that drives you into that world stage. And that is that obsessive, like nitty gritty, paying attention to every little detail where you really, again, find invention, you find creativity, you find ways to flourish, and you find ways to find that groove, which is, you know, what this is all about. So, um, Joe, any thoughts there?
Yeah, yeah, I'd love to add to that with the WKD question. Should you go agency or individual? With FinSuite, from day one, we were agency. I was saying we from day one
Yep.
because I knew that we were going to go agency. And to make that change, it can be seen as starting over. If you know this is going to be an agency, this I'm doing, you can just be an agency right away. If you do not want to be an agency, if you're like, hey, I'm going to freelance my whole life and I'm just going to be me, that's my mission, then you should be you. Also remember, we cost more money than me. So when you're saying we, people are ready to pay more money than if it's just me, because there's people involved, there's more people. And as you start doing more work, you're going to quickly start working with other people, even if it's a JavaScript thing here, solution here from an illustrator, whatever. That's how I would approach that.
Yeah.
Okay. And I see Kai already answering this for me. I didn't even have to say that. Thank you, Kai.
And this is something that it'll be weird sometimes, right? People might ask you who's we, and you just find a good answer to that, right? Like, whether it's, hey, I work with a team of freelancers, or, depending on what the needs are, or maybe you have a team, right? But don't be discouraged if somebody, like, I was talking to my girlfriend about this the other day. Sometimes when you ask questions, it's not necessarily to like demean somebody or to like tear things down. It's really because you want to know. But a lot of times people see questions as like a challenge to their position. And so they'll back down because somebody asked a question. And so, going back to episodes before about selling and controlling conversations, questions are a great way to kind of dig deeper with the client, but they also fall into a different context where, like, a lot of times it's just about explaining and understanding. And again, having a good explanation
And
for
be
why you do the
honest.
things you do. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, having a good explanation, right?
You can say, it's me right now, but I'm looking to grow into we. Where I'm actively looking for people to join my company because of this, and this. Just be transparent. That's a badass answer. As a client, I'm thinking, okay, this person's motivated. This person's growing a company. I want to work with this person.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't lie. There's nothing ashamed. You shouldn't be ashamed of using we.
Correct.
That I just think it's okay.
And that wasn't my point. It can still be uncomfortable to answer that, right? So again, just knowing
Yeah,
how to
of
deal with it
course, of course.
and knowing why you're doing the work, right? If you know why you're doing things, anytime somebody answers a question, it's just about delivering the why, right? And so, yeah, again, just knowing what you need. But that can also bring you to the next step, which is kind of hitting a plateau, right? You finding your groove, you're growing, everything's going great, just like any kind of personal benchmark or standard, you might hit a plateau, right? You're going to hit a ceiling where you've grown to a certain level and now things just kind of start to flatten out. And so how do you break through that? Like what's the next step? This happens a lot with fitness, when you're working out, maybe you're trying to bench press something and then you get to a point where you just can't add more weight. And so in order to break through that, you typically have to work a surrounding muscle group, or you have to, take a break from that type of exercise for a while, or you have to add some variety to the workout. And so this is the same thing in the context of building a business. You may get really good at doing those $8,000, $10,000 websites, $5,000, whatever it is, and you get into your groove, right? So you found your groove, you're growing, but now you can't break out of that groove. So let's talk about that for a little bit, Joe. How do you break out of that groove? How do you break the plateau and take the next step? And this is where I'll go back to that question from Vi earlier on about landing international clients or landing clients outside of the scope. And so how do you take that next threshold? How do you break out?
I'll answer this with real things that we've done at FinSuite. One of our big breakouts, of course, was the HelloSign and the experts program, the partner program. Talked about that a lot. The next big jump for us, I think, was when we started to get involved with community. I want to say that Lotiflow was the first project where I felt, okay, now people in the community are starting to know FinSuite. We had the Hacks channel, we were doing YouTube, people liked it. But after Flow, people were like, whoa, this animation in the hero is next level. This, what you did on a Webflow hosted site is next level. So we saw a little bit of an increase there. Then we fast forward a bit, we saw another big break when we actually announced the development only. I don't know how it happened, but maybe through the blog post, through the people talking about it or whatever, we started to just naturally rise in project cost. Bigger companies were coming. They may have seen our post. We advertised it very well on the site. And that was a big break for us. So there are these little things that we did that we didn't necessarily do to break out of the plateau, but they did break us out of the plateau. It's staying active. It's being involved. It's getting into the community. It's doing something big. It's doing something that is going to just blow people's minds. That's what we're trying to do all the time at FinSuite, hoping that 1 out of 10 of them is going to break us past that next level. So that's how I look at hitting the plateau. Just keep doing cool things and you will continue to grow past that. But it's a real thing. You will flatline. You will grow and say, hey, I've been having the same projects for the past 6 months, for the past year. And you just have to keep working through that, keep pushing and pushing and pushing.
Yeah. I agree. And I think I can't emphasize enough how much some of those extracurricular activities are beneficial for taking that next step, right? For becoming more well-rounded. Because it is the thing that sets you apart. It is the stuff that starts to build stickiness with the brand. It's what builds those connections outside of, just delivering the websites, right? There's lots of agencies that deliver, maybe bigger, I don't know, somebody could say nicer or however you want to describe the websites. There's lots of agencies that do more of that than FinSuite, but they don't have the reputation than FinSuite, and maybe not in the Webflow space, right? I'm just talking about in all of web design here. But having those tentacles in the community, having all of these products that people interact with and play with, having all of these touch points with the brand, they start to give you a perception that it's way bigger than just an agency that builds websites. And so part of taking that next step into that bigger growth is having this perception that you're bigger or that you're doing things larger than you are, right? And so this
Yeah.
is how, again, you climb into that next tier of what it is. And this is how you break through into another stratosphere, right? And so if you're hitting that plateau and you're getting really good at doing the websites, look around and see what is happening in the industry that I'm not doing, right? Because I'm really good at this one thing. I'm doing this over and over and over, but I'm still not breaking this plateau. I'm still not getting to the next threshold. So what is that thing that you can do? What is that piece that's missing that you can start bringing it into the fold? It could be events. It could be a little side product, right? It could be any little thing, a content strategy. Again, anything that really helps build that stickiness and compound momentum again to help break through that next plateau. And just FYI, for anybody who's interested, I just shared that article about, it's called Excel Never Dies. And it's a great article about the evolution of Excel as a piece of software and how that ties into the no code space and what's coming from there. It was a great read. I encourage everyone here to take a look at that article. Let's see, Jay Poucher, trends. What do you mean by that, Jay? Trends. Let's go to the last one here. Let's talk a little bit about never slowing down, and then we'll go full Q&A. So, Joe, when we were looking at the notes, you said
Never
this
slow
one stuck
down.
out to you. Talk to me about that.
Well, this is my favorite one because this is FinSuite. We do not slow down. I can't think of a single time during our entire company lifespan where we said, all right, let's cool it down right here. Let's wait, let's see what happens, and let's not continue growing. It's always growth, 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 growth. Healthy growth. I'm not saying to do something ridiculous that's going to ruin your business. I'm saying you always have to be thinking getting to the next level. If you're too comfortable, someone else is going to come and eat you up. Webflow has a very low barrier to entry, very low. you can become a professional in Webflow in less than a year. You could be making a living wage in less than a year with zero education. So people are going to be continuing to come into this agency, to come into this community. If you are staying safe, if you are staying at your level, those people are going to catch you very fast. And I realized this a few years ago. And ever since then, I thought, nobody can catch FinSuite. We can't let that happen. So we need to grow and grow and grow so that even if the biggest players come in here, they're not going to touch us. That is a kind of mentality that I want everybody to have. That when you're building Webflow sites, and in a year from now, you can say, I built 15 Webflow sites. That's so much more powerful than someone saying, I built 2 Webflow sites. They're building a Webflow site. They want to hear Webflow experience. So you need to grow, 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 do as much work as you can before it becomes too much of a common service.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, because Joe and I were talking about this the other day, that the flood of talent that's going to enter this space as soon as Webflow becomes more developer friendly is going to be obnoxiously overwhelming, right? And so, fair warning to everybody who's in right now. If you're playing in the space right now, you got a huge advantage over everybody who's coming. But over the next year, over the next 2 years, 3 years, like, that may not be the case, and it's going to be a lot more competitive. And so, if you're just competing, but trying to sell the same thing that the WordPress folks who are selling modified template sites are just selling, but in Webflow, maybe you're not, like, finding the way to stand out, or maybe you're not going to give yourself the best opportunity to take advantage of this head start, because you really do have a head start right now. And so that's where I'd be encouraging anybody who's in the audience seeing this right now has the opportunity to, like, really just take a lead, right? You've got a year, you've got 2 years to really capitalize on what's going to happen in this market, and so again, that's what the goal here is, to encourage people, is to find ways to do that, to push yourself, to maybe come up with something a little different that you might before. Lots of other people are focused on instruction inside of Webflow. We're focused on helping you figure out how to sell more projects, how to grow that business. And so again, tying it back to, our goals here with the show and at FinSuite. And with that, the never slowing down. I wanted to bring up one thing that happens in sales all the time, right? So speaking of just general sales knowledge, I've been doing sales training and team building and sales related things for a lot of times. And you see this all the time with new people in sales. And this happens with freelancers all the time. It even happens to agencies. You start grinding, right? You start doing a lot of work. You start getting a lot of interest in your products. And maybe you even start selling some of those projects. And as you start selling, you stop doing less work to hype up. You stop bringing less prospects in. You start getting less leads, which means that once you finish selling the stuff that you sold, you're immediately going to drop back down because you don't have the momentum to come up. And so you end up going through these cycles of prospect, 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 sell, 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 sell. And then, oh shit, I don't have anything else to sell and deliver on. And so you need to maintain, this is that never slow down. You need to maintain your prospecting. You need to maintain the amount of leads, the amount of effort that you're putting into exposure. The opportunities coming in should not slow down just because you start selling bigger projects. If anything, this is the opportunity you take to figure out how to scale and how to take some of those opportunities to grow your team and start delegating some of that work. But I just want to make sure, like, that's the biggest thing I could point out to anybody who's starting out here, is don't just start spinning your wheels real strong. And then as soon as you get a little bit of traction, stop, because you think, oh, I landed a client, I'm good for a month or two, I'm good for 6 months. I landed a huge client, I'm good for a year. Whatever it is, at the end of that project, or as you get close to that project, you're going to start looking around and wondering, like, shit, what am I going to do now? And if you haven't had some of that prospecting momentum, like, if you didn't stay with it, you're going to have a big drop in sales, and then you're going to take you months sometimes to build that back up. And so I just wanted to share that little bit of tidbit of experience from a sales standpoint. This is something you guys should all be thinking about.
Great point.
Maintaining that momentum.
Really love that point. And that's one of the natural ways that FinSuite grew, that we were getting more and more projects in, more and more projects. Instead of saying, no, we don't have the capacity to take that, we went out and made it happen.
Yeah.
Got someone to do it, worked a few weekends, and hey, that's fine. And then we now have the capital to bring somebody on to do the next one.
Right.
So yeah, you have to really, really focus on just doing it, getting it done.
Yeah.
Great point.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to QA.
Yeah,
I see
Q&A.
some really juicy stuff in here.
Kai, good point. Giving the client more than they ask for or expect every time. He's bringing up some good things here: bespoke video tutorials, progress reports, style guides, branding options, etc. So it's more than just sending an email to say, "Hey, how's your website?" or just delivering the website, right? Or doing a good job with the website. It's like, what are the extras around the edges? Like, what are those fringe benefits you may be able to offer a client? Where they're just like, "Oh, we didn't even expect this." You hand a client a style guide with a web project, and they're like, "Oh, what is this?" And then like instantly you're in another tier, right? And if it has all their bright, maybe they've never had brand guidelines before. They've never had an official style guide, and so doing some of these things can definitely help you take that next step. Joe, do you see anything in here you wanted to answer?
Yeah, we have some good questions and conversation from Kenneth Christensen. Okay, Kenneth asks, I'm launching my freelance business, but I am unsure where to share content. I don't have a strong presence anywhere at the moment. That's a thing. That's new business. Every business that starts out new experiences this. There is no presence. Patience is huge, 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 huge. Our hacks videos had less than 100 views for like 2 years. I mean, there was super valuable content, and I knew this content was good, and it had like 30 views, 35 views. But those 35 people actually watched it and did it because there's a ton of comments, a ton of people writing to us, and that is working for us. And it did work for us, and it continues to grow.
Yeah.
And I still think all the numbers are low, but the content's out there. There's going to be more people coming to the space, and this content is going to exponentially get more strong without us doing anything. So Kenneth, start with YouTube. If you have 10 subscribers for a year, doesn't matter. If your content is quality, if people are telling you your content is quality and you truly believe it is, you should be doing that. You will come up in search results. You can have content around clients of what they are searching for in Webflow. YouTube has great search. And I do think that the Webflow showcase, is a great place to post. I'm in the clonable section all the time. My little Webflow thumbnail is a link to the clonable page. And I just check that out once per day. Anything cool, who's doing something fun. We have brought so many people onto the team just from that page because they're doing something cool, they're engaging, and those are the type of people that we want. Clients go there too. There is a link to the showcase from Webflow's homepage. We have had people that said, "Hey, I found you through this project," specifically a showcase project that is featured, but still they found us through that showcase. You can push yourself to get featured. So absolutely, you have to start doing it, and you cannot feel negative about it when it doesn't work right away.
Yeah.
You have to do it and expect it to return in 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years. It's a
Yeah.
long-term game.
Yeah, and this can be disheartening because maybe you see a Mackenzie Child or you see a Timothy Ricks or you see one of these top performers and you're like, "Oh, but they did it immediately." Well, listen, there's always going to be the edge cases where somebody is doing a little bit of something and they're just going to like take the lead in whatever space, right? This can't be what you measure yourself against, right? You can't measure yourself
Yeah.
against the outliers in the space. You have to really understand that it takes a lot of time, and you don't know, right? Mackenzie Child was doing a lot of stuff before he found Webflow and started designing in this space, which is why he's had an audience that he brought into this space, and it becomes a little bit of momentum, so that when he finally finds his niche inside of Webflow, it explodes and goes crazy, right? And so you don't know
Yeah.
what people were doing ahead of time. I have, for instance, I have blog articles on my personal website that drive significant amount of traffic all over the web. Um, and they're things that I haven't touched in 5 years, but they drive so many people to my website that like I'm talking about tens of thousands of people on a monthly basis. That I always get people reaching out and they're like, what about this or what about that? Some guy in Estonia the other day called me about an old project that I'd worked on, like if I was still an expert or something. And it's just, you never know where the content you create and the amount of work that you do, is going to take you. It becomes benchmarks of like, think about the web works off of crawlers, right? Google's looking for all of these credible signals, and so you have to start somewhere. Kai saying sharing stuff on Webflow showcase and making it clonable can be great for more exposure. I I can't emphasize that enough. Somebody posted on Facebook group the other day that they had never showcased a site and they didn't see the value in it. I disagree. I take the exact opposite position on that. I think you should showcase whatever
Yep.
site you can, and if anything, make it clonable if you can. The amount of exposure and momentum and like opportunities you can get by doing that, second to none. You know, there's no better way. You can talk all day about what you can do, or you can show somebody once. You know, and
Yeah.
this is a business where showing carries more weight than talking all day long. Let's see.
Pablo
Somebody asked me.
Cortez,
Oh,
do
go
you
ahead. Go ahead.
guys do you guys think that Webflow's no-code marketing strategy is limiting its growth? Big clients tend to look for more conventional development agencies and think Webflow is just another Squarespace or Wix. Right now, at this given time, I do think that the development limitations are turning companies away from Webflow. I also know that Webflow is working towards fixing those limitations, making sure that these bigger companies can come to the platform. So right now, I do think it's a problem, but we're still seeing big companies come to Webflow with big technical requirements, with big development requirements. So it's not stopping their growth. And once they start releasing more of their development tools, I think it is no longer ever going to be considered like a Squarespace or a Wix. I don't think it is now, but to the third party person, it won't feel like that.
Right. And Ollie is saying this is something I worry about a lot. This is going back to taking some time off and the amount of people who are going to enter the market. Saying he took 12 months off to care for his dad, and ever since he returned, it seems more saturated and harder to stand out. That's not going to slow down, right? Like this is not what it's not slowing down. It's not going back. If anything, it's going to get harder to do this. And so like starting now, finding that groove, finding a way to do it. Eric says Seth Godin wrote a book called The Practice, and in the book he mentions that the practice is always available to us, but the results are unknown. The key is to love the practice. I love that, Eric. This is exactly what it is. You got to go through the paces. You have to do the work. Sometimes it's all about consistency. You know, it's about doing that same thing for 2 years and then finally breaking out and having the momentum and the back work. I think this happens a lot on YouTube. You know, you see a lot of these YouTube channels before they break out, and they're like Joe was saying, hundreds of views here, maybe a couple videos with 1,000 views, whatever. But then if you go get a couple videos that have 1 million views, all of that traffic's going to spill back, and then you start increasing the count of all your other videos. And so a lot of people think that, oh, you have this huge library of videos with all these views. Those views came immediately. Nah, most of those views come after. As you build momentum, you bring people in for this, you know, like anchor content, this huge thing that goes viral, and then that spills over. And that spillover, capturing as much of that spillover as often as possible, gives you opportunities to kind of grow and compound and again stack some of that momentum. So let's see what else is coming here. There was a question earlier, Joe, about landing an international client. It was a young somebody in his, let's see, I think it was Vi said something about, let's see, he's in his 20s and wanted to be able, as a 22-year-old trying to build a Webflow dev agency, how would one get an international client? So do you want to talk a little bit about stepping out into dealing in other markets? Obviously, this opens up other doors. You have to worry about different regulations. You have to think about, you know, lots of stuff that maybe you don't need to think about if you're just dealing in your local market. So, Joe, what are your thoughts there?
I don't think too much about this at all. With the internet, I try to think of every client and every person as being the same. Same location, same internet. We're just all here. We have a lot of clients in Europe. Most of our clients are in the US. I don't see any difference between those clients. We will take clients from any area, from anywhere. It's hard for me to answer this without knowing what the countries are. Are you from a country that you can't sell websites to and you want to break out to a larger company, a larger country, or are you just interested in trying different things? I don't know, but I don't like to even look at countries as barriers. You can be in a tiny country with no Webflow stuff going on, and you can land a US client. You don't even have to talk about time zone or anything, or I just don't see a barrier there.
Yeah.
Well, let me rephrase that last line. There is a barrier, especially when you're first starting. Let me say that there is a lot less of a barrier when you have a portfolio.
Yeah. Yeah,
That
I
when you're
can't go back
overseas, we're
to
seeing a lot of overseas people getting US clients, getting
yep,
other country clients because they have so much experience and they're trustworthy
yep,
because of that.
yeah. That's where and if you can't get the paid gigs, making up the work, showing that you can do the work, getting that work in front of the right people also helps. I could see it's a little different
Yeah.
if you're a native English speaker and you're trying to land a gig maybe in another country, maybe there's less hurdles there. If you're coming from a emerging market and maybe your English isn't as crisp, it may be difficult to communicate with some of those people. And so again, this is where the work stands out. People will put up with a lot
Right.
if they know what they're
Yes.
getting is worth that cost, right? And so your work should strive to be worth that cost, whatever the hurdle is. And so just think about that. Let's see. Philippe is
We
asking, how do you
yeah.
handle website content? Do you wait for the client to send you an order to start the project, or do you start anyway? So I think he's asking, are we waiting for the content first, or do we get to work before the
Yeah.
content is in hand? Which is like that's always a
Yeah,
question.
great question, Philippe. And this is one of the reasons why we drop design, because this content process is just a pain in the ass. In a perfect world, you would start design when all of the content's done, and you would start development when all of the design is done, right? Perfect world. Client sends the whole content, says this is not going to change at all. Even when that happens, it's not true. The content's always going to change. I don't think we've ever had a project where it was delivered beforehand and perfect. It's really hard to answer this because there is no right answer, because every client is so unique here. I think the best thing to do here is make it very clear to the client that when they change content, when they have delays in content, they are hurting themselves and the project as a whole. Before we start every project, or when we were doing design, when we started projects, we say the content, if the content is not done beforehand, you're going to have delays, we're going to have delays, and we're both going to waste our time. The more complete the content is before we start, the better project we can do for you. And we want to do the best project for you. So just in a very nice way, telling them that there are really big negatives to being lazy with content and not doing it the right way. And even when you say that, they're still going to not listen, and they're going to still deliver content late and change it at the last minute. But hopefully it happens less when you give them that very friendly disclaimer.
Yep. Yep. Um, Susan is saying, this is kind of the same thing. Oh, not really the same thing. It's the tax implications. I'd like to expand my services and would like to work with people in the U.S. and beyond. How does that work with taxes paying contractors in their own countries? Rohan answers, but you just send them the money and the taxes are their responsibility. Um, I don't know, Joe. What are your thoughts there?
Every country is different. Every country is different. Yes, what we do is we treat them all as freelancers, individual people, and they are responsible for paying taxes on their end.
Yep.
But that is
Um,
definitely something that you should look into for your country. Every single country has different rules about this, so this is in no way legal advice.
Yeah. Heatherwick is saying, I'm curious about your team or what you think makes a world class team or agency. That's how we started the show. So if you want to go back, you can rewind the episode right to the beginning. We spent the first, right after the little Cal invite teaser, we spent, the first couple minutes talking about that. So Pablo Cortez talking about world class agencies. Are you guys still planning on doing an episode about GDPR compliance? Ali follows that up with would love to
Yeah,
see it and has voted. It is climbing. So if we look at the show, let's take a look at that. Let's see in real time.
should be
Pull
in
this.
2 Tuesdays, not the next Tuesday, but the Tuesday after. It looks like that one's coming up. So if you
Yeah.
want it and you're here right now, give it a vote.
Yeah, if you go vote, you could
There we
make it the
go.
next episode if you want. So it'll be between how do I get better design or user data management, GDPR, CCPA compliance. So feel free to go vote if you have not for those already. That's kind of how we're picking all of the show topics moving forward. So yeah, that's the way to do that. Let's see. What a dream world. Oh, that's a dream world Kai is probably talking about when you were saying uh, client delivers content, then design starts, and then development starts after design is finished. So yeah. Eric's saying he uses software
Okay.
called Content
Oh,
Share to gather content before even beginning design. Yeah, using a tool like that. There's also something called Gather Content. Um, so that there's all sorts of tools like that that can make that part of the job easier. So let's see. Just wanted to say one thing. These weekly videos really help with working hard and maybe getting down on yourself and being overwhelmed, especially with the current times compounded on top. Jay, we're glad we can be here. We love that feedback. Let us know what we could do. Let's see. Your weekly contact has become an uplifting thing. I need weekly to help. Hey, you know what? We're here to fill the cup, Jay. We're glad to be with you, and we're glad that you're tuning in. This has been a lot of fun for us as well. I think these last few weeks, kind of growing this. Last week we broke 100, so we've been staying static above 60 here this whole time, and so like we're excited that all of you have chosen to spend this time with us on a weekly basis, and so feel free to let us know what we can do to add more value to that. We are about to experiment with some design reviews, so some live feedback, a little more casual setting. And so we'll probably announce something like that next week. We'll announce the first couple episodes of that, and we're probably only a couple weeks out from we're doing a global Webflow meetup. So keep an eye on that on March 25th. I'm not going to tease too much, but on March 25th, we're working with a lot of other meetup organizers. So in a few weeks, we're going to have a huge event. We're going to unveil a virtual co-working space that we're building. We're going to go. We got a lot of stuff coming down the pike. Actually, we got a big survey about working with Webflow that we're interested to share with all of you all. And if there's anything you guys would like to see us do outside of the stuff on the show, suggestions, feel free to reach out at communications@finsuite.com. We'd love to hear from you all directly, one-on-one, etc. So, any other questions here that we need to address
I'd
before
love
we
to
go?
close it out. We have Kia World web designer with a question that I think really ends this very well. What is the purpose of FinSuite live streams? Great question.
Mm,
We talked about this during this entire episode, doing things to get attention, to get people to know you, to get people to talk about you, to get people searching for you. We actually landed a deal because the person was listening to this show. I promise you. Somebody said, I saw this episode. I love the way you're thinking about that. We want to work with you. Small to medium sized project, but it actually converted, which is amazing. I wasn't expecting that at all. And the real reason, it's not to get clients, it is to engage with all of you. We want to teach you. We want you to be better at Webflow. We want Webflow as a platform to grow. And there's also another side to it where when you love us, you're going to buy our products. You're going to buy our services. And I'm happy to say that because they're going to be good products and good services. When we start dropping products this year and when we start dropping community services this year, I know a lot of you in here will want to pay us for it. Take my money. And you will want to say that. That's a powerful thing. And I think this show is helping us go and do that, to make everybody here listening a power, just part of our community and part of this passion. So that is really the core reason of doing this, to really engage with you and get you to help us get to the next level. And
yeah.
for us to help you get to the next level. We're all working together here.
What's funny is that Joe and I had talked about a show before I even joined the team, right? So before I was even a FinSuite employee, Joe and I were playing around with doing like some kind of podcast like this, live stream, just some kind of weekly get together to start talking about what we see happening in the industry, opportunities, and obviously after I joined the team, it became a no-brainer for us to do this as the center hub of our community building efforts, right? And so this is just the first phase of a lot of things. I know we've been teasing a lot of things, we've been talking a lot of things, but again, our goal right now is kind of to build this foundation around the community. We serve a ton of people, we offer a lot of value, and we've been doing that mostly for free throughout the last couple years. And the goal here is to really, again, offer up an access to that inner circle, start inviting people into a little bit more intimate community setting with FinSuite, and hopefully, again, compound the value we offer to the community, right? And so it's hard for us up until a certain point, you can just assume you know what the community wants, what the market wants, right? But at a certain level, you need to start testing your assumptions against real audiences in order to take the next step. And so this is an effort in us trying to do some of that, right? Trying to get real-time feedback, real-time engagement, and again, interact with you all in a way that we haven't been able to do before. And we're going to add one more layer to that once we launch this virtual space where we'll be able to interact on a regular basis and people will be able to kind of hang out with us. It seems like maybe that should be happening faster, but we don't mess around on design here, FinSuite, and we got a beautiful little gather.town space under works. I wish I could tease it, but
We
I've been told
do.
I'm not allowed.
We do.
So y'all just got to wait. You just have to wait. But it's coming.
Coming very soon.
March
Gonna blow your
25th,
minds.
put it on your calendar. We're hosting a huge global event. Literally, there's going to be probably a couple hundred Webflow users from all over the world at this event. So we're coordinating that with the community team. By the end of this week, we'll release the actual the event invite. So next week, we'll have an official place for you all to go RSVP on that if you want. Otherwise, I think we're good here. I want to answer this. WKD Dos Argente. This is not the kind of thing we can support during this show. So I saw you ask this question twice about the iframe. There are some solutions for that out there. Maybe we'll see if we can find some of that. But right now, yeah, these are not the kind of things that we're answering technical questions. But this is why we do want to invite in that next tier so that we can maybe get to the nitty gritty and help you find some of that. So let's see. Securing a deposit before taking a project. Yeah, okay. I think that's all for today. We could get lost in going into some of this. We'll take these questions into account for future episodes about maybe how to deal with clients, how to handle those processes. Actually, people keep asking us about, like systems for delivering websites. So maybe we can share a ClickUp template that we've created. Pablo Cortez, yes, Clone Comp is coming. We don't have enough to tease for that, but yeah, we have some stuff planned. Hopefully around August and also in November, maybe to coincide with No Code Comp. So more on that as we go.
Ooh, juicy.
So, yeah, sneaky peeks. All right, that's all. We love y'all. Thanks for hanging out. Remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel. That'd be a big help. Go subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're not already, hit the little bell for notifications. Drop your email over at the Effin Growth website to keep up with all of the Finstant notifications and all we're doing with the show. And other than that, we'll catch y'all next week. Joe, you got any closing remarks?
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. I'm happy to see you next week and keep this moving. Let's do it.
Boom. Let's Effin grow.